A billionaire handed his personal credit card to his housemaid and told her she could use it for 24 hours. No rules, no limits, no surveillance. Less than 1 hour later, a charge appeared on his phone. It was not designer clothes. It was not a luxury vacation. It was not an escape plan. It was $39 at a neighborhood pharmacy, and when Gabriel Charlton saw the receipt details, he had to sit down. Because in that single transaction, Alice Donovan had done something he never anticipated. She had shown him exactly who she was, and in doing so, she had exposed exactly who he had become. Before we continue, what looks like a simple $39 purchase is about to reveal a truth money can't hide. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like. Alice didn't splurge. She didn't run. She did something far more powerful. Stay with me. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because what Alice bought with that card will reveal more than any luxury purchase ever could. 42-year-old Gabriel Charlton had stopped believing in human goodness sometime between his second divorce and his father's funeral. As founder and CEO of Charlton Properties, a real estate empire worth $1.8 billion, he had watched business partners lie, investors manipulate, and employees betray for far less than a year's salary. His penthouse overlooking Lakeshore Drive had floor-to-ceiling windows stretching 15 feet high, contemporary art worth millions hanging on walls that echoed with expensive silence. He owned properties in Chicago, New York City, Dallas, and San Diego. His watch cost more than most families spent on rent in 6 months. Yet every single morning he woke up feeling like a man suffocating in a room with too much air. His late father, Richard Charlton, had drilled one lesson into him since childhood in their Winnetka home. Trust is the currency fools waste on people who will never deserve it. Son, generosity without control is just stupidity in an expensive suit. People behave when money is watching. The moment you stop watching, they will take everything and justify it as survival. Desperation makes thieves of everyone, especially the poor. Gabriel had carried that gospel like scripture for 42 years. Every charitable donation filtered through lawyers and accountants. Every act of giving calculated for tax benefits and public reputation. He had never once looked poverty in the face, and simply helped. Not without contracts, not without oversight, not without protecting himself first. But that Tuesday morning in early March, something fractured in the armor around his chest. He was running late for a conference call with investors in San Diego, rushing through his penthouse with his assistant Jennifer trailing 3 steps behind. His Tom Ford suit cost $6,000. His leather briefcase held contracts worth $18 million. His phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from lawyers, architects, city officials, all demanding pieces of his time and attention. Then he saw her. Standing in his marble kitchen near the counter, phone pressed to her ear, was Alice Donovan, his housemaid of 6 years. The woman who cleaned quietly, never complained, never missed a shift, and never asked questions. But this morning, her face was pale, her hands were shaking, her voice was barely a whisper. "I am sorry," she said into the phone. "I will figure it out. I promise." Gabriel stopped walking. Jennifer nearly crashed into him, carrying her tablet and coffee. "Mr. Charlton, the call starts in 7 minutes. We need to review the Naperville contract terms before you speak with the board." "Wait here," Gabriel said, his voice distant, disconnected from the urgency vibrating through the air around him. He approached slowly, Italian leather shoes clicking against polished marble, unsure why his body moved forward when every logical part of his brain screamed to keep walking. Financial problems were everywhere in America. This was not special. This was not different. This was just another person struggling in a system he had helped build and profit from for decades. Except something about her voice stopped him cold. When Alice turned and saw Gabriel standing there, panic flashed across her face like lightning in a dark room. She almost dropped her phone. Apologies tumbled out immediately. "I am so sorry, Mr. Charlton. I did not hear you come in. I was just finishing up the breakfast dishes. I will get back to work right now." Her apology for being human hit Gabriel harder than any business loss ever had. "What is wrong?" he asked quietly, surprising himself with the question. Alice blinked. Shock registered in eyes that had clearly cried themselves dry recently. "Nothing, sir. Everything is fine." Just a personal matter. It will not affect my work. Gabriel studied her face. Intelligence lived behind that exhaustion. Education in the careful way she chose her words. This was not someone born into poverty. This was someone who had fallen from somewhere stable and could not find solid ground on the way down. "How long have you been struggling?" he asked. Shame flickered across Alice's features like a candle flame fighting wind. "I do not want to burden you with my problems, sir. You have been very kind employing me. I am grateful." "How long?" Gabriel repeated. Alice swallowed hard. 6 months. Maybe longer. My daughter Diana has asthma. The medication is expensive. Our rent increased twice this year. I have been managing, but this month the pharmacy said our insurance lapsed, and I owe them for 3 months of prescriptions, and I do not have it right now. 6 months. A woman working in his home every single day for 6 years, raising a child alone, drowning financially, and he had never once noticed, because he had never once looked. Jennifer cleared her throat impatiently behind him. "Mr. Charlton, we really must go. The San Diego team is expecting you in 5 minutes. Gabriel raised one hand, silencing her without breaking eye contact with Alice. His father's voice echoed in his skull, sharp and certain. "The desperate will bleed you dry and smile while doing it. Give them an inch, and they will take the whole damn empire." Maybe it was time to test that theory himself. To prove once and for all whether his father had been right, or whether Gabriel had spent 42 years believing a poison that protected his wealth but destroyed his humanity. Gabriel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. Alice's eyes widened slightly, probably expecting a small loan if she was lucky. Maybe $200. Maybe $500 if the universe felt unexpectedly generous that morning. Instead, Gabriel pulled out a sleek black American Express card. Centurion, platinum edges, raised numbers, no spending limit, no restrictions. Just pure, unrestricted access to wealth most people could not fathom in their wildest imagination. Alice stared at it like he had pulled out a live grenade. "Take this," Gabriel said, holding the card between them like a bridge connecting two completely different worlds. "I do not understand," Alice stammered, stepping back as if the card itself might burn her. "It is yours for 24 hours, Gabriel explained, his voice steady despite the chaos of doubt screaming inside his head. "Buy whatever you need. No limits, no questions, no conditions attached." Alice's hands began to tremble visibly. "Sir, this has to be some kind of test, some kind of trick. People like you do not just hand out credit cards to people like me." "I want to see something," Gabriel said. And for the first time in years, he spoke complete, unfiltered truth. "I want to see what someone with nothing does when given access to everything. I want to test something my father taught me. Prove him right or prove him wrong. Either way, I will finally know." He pressed the card into her palm. Her fingers were rough from years of cleaning supplies, shaking like leaves in a storm about to break. "Why me?" Alice whispered, tears pooling in eyes that looked too tired to cry anymore. Gabriel thought about Diana, a child he had never met but whose medication bills were apparently keeping her mother awake at night. He thought about his own childhood, private schools and skiing trips and every need anticipated before it could even form into words. This woman had nothing except a daughter she was desperately trying to protect. "Because I am tired of assumptions," Gabriel said quietly. "Because I want to believe there is still something decent left in people who have lost everything. Prove my father right or prove him wrong. Either way, I will finally know the truth about who people really are when no one is controlling them." Alice closed her fingers around the card slowly, like someone touching fire for the first time and expecting to be burned. 24 hours, Gabriel repeated, stepping back. "Spend whatever you want. There is no pin. Just sign your name. I will check the account tomorrow morning. Same time, same place." Jennifer looked physically ill. "Mr. Charlton, this is highly irregular. We should at least establish parameters. Legal protection, documentation." "No parameters," Gabriel said firmly, his eyes still locked on Alice. "No protection, just trust." The word felt foreign in his mouth. Trust. He had spent decades avoiding it like a contagious disease. Alice opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Her fingers closed tighter around the card. Gabriel could see her mind racing, calculating risk, weighing dignity against desperation, trying to determine if this was kindness or cruelty disguised as opportunity. He turned and walked toward his office before she could refuse, before he could change his mind, before logic could override whatever impulse had cracked through the ice around his chest that morning. Jennifer followed, her heels clicking frantically against marble. "Sir, I really must protest this decision. You just gave unrestricted financial access to someone you barely know. She could disappear. She could max out the card. She could." "Then I will have my answer," Gabriel interrupted, reaching for his phone to join the investor call he was now 10 minutes late for. "And maybe my father was right all along. Maybe people are exactly as selfish as he always said. Maybe I have been a fool for even wondering if they could be anything different." But as he sat down at his desk overlooking the Chicago River, watching the morning light reflect off glass towers he had helped build, Gabriel Charlton realized something unsettling. He was not testing Alice Donovan. He was testing himself, and he had no idea which outcome terrified him more. Alice Donovan stood in the marble kitchen long after Gabriel disappeared into his office, the black credit card burning in her palm like a live coal. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Lakeshore Drive stretched below, cars moving like blood cells through expensive arteries. Up here, everything gleamed. Down there, where she actually lived, nothing did. She slipped the card into her uniform pocket and finished the dishes with shaking hands. By 6 o'clock, Alice was on the number 6 bus heading south, watching Chicago transform outside scratched windows. The glass towers gave way to brownstones, then to neighborhoods where corner stores had bars on windows, and men sat on stoops, counting hours until something better arrived. It never did. The second bus took 40 minutes. Alice used the time to calculate impossibilities. Diana's asthma medication was $117. The pharmacy bill was $342. Rent was short by $200. School lunch account was negative $68, which meant Diana had been eating partial meals or nothing, smiling through hunger because she knew her mother was trying. Alice closed her eyes against the familiar shame. 3 years ago, life had looked different. She had worked as an office manager for a South Loop law firm, decent salary, health insurance, stability. Then her mother got sick. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. 6 months of watching someone disappear in hospital rooms that smelled like bleach and hopelessness. Alice burned through savings, maxed credit cards, missed work for hospice visits. When her mother finally died, Alice had a 7-year-old daughter, $18,000 in medical debt, and a job that no longer existed because compassionate leave has limits in America. The penthouse position had been survival, not ambition. Gabriel Charlton paid well but never looked at her long enough to see an actual person. She had been furniture that cleaned other furniture. Invisible. Safe. Until this morning when invisibility shattered and he saw everything she had been hiding. The card in her pocket felt like a trap. Like a test she would inevitably fail because tests were designed for people who had room to make mistakes. Alice had no room. One wrong move, and Diana would pay the price. Their apartment in South Shore was a third-floor walk-up with peeling paint and radiators that clanged all night. Diana was sitting at their small kitchen table doing homework when Alice walked in, her daughter's braids slightly messy because Alice had rushed that morning. "Mama," Diana said, looking up with eyes too old for 8 years. Mrs. Kowalski said, "I need new gym shoes by Friday, or I cannot participate in class anymore." Alice felt something crack inside her chest. "How much, baby?" $45. "But it is okay. I do not mind sitting out." Alice knelt down and pulled Diana close, breathing in the Johnson's baby shampoo smell of her hair. "You are not sitting out of anything. I promise." Diana hugged her back, small arms fierce and trusting. "I know, Mama. You always figure it out." That trust was the heaviest thing Alice carried. After Diana fell asleep that night, Alice sat at the kitchen table staring at the black credit card under the single overhead light. 24 hours, no limits. A billionaire's test to see if poverty made people into thieves. Gabriel Charlton thought he was studying her. He thought he was proving some theory his dead father had planted in his brain about human nature and desperation. He thought this was about her character. But Alice knew the truth. This was about his character, about whether he could actually see people beneath him as human. about whether wealth had completely destroyed his ability to recognize dignity when it wore second-hand clothes and rode 2 buses to clean his floors. She could refuse. She could return the card tomorrow and preserve whatever illusion of pride she had left. She could prove she was not desperate enough to accept charity disguised as a social experiment. Or she could think about Diana, about medication and shoes and food and the electric bill notice taped to their door, about the fact that pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. Alice picked up the card. Her hands trembled. Her reflection in the dark window looked like a ghost. She was not doing this for herself. She was doing this because somewhere in Chicago, a little girl slept believing her mother could fix anything. And Alice would walk through fire, swallow every piece of pride, accept every test and judgment and assumption if it meant Diana could keep believing that lie a little longer. At 8:15 the next morning, Alice walked into Myers Pharmacy on 63rd Street, the same place that had refused to fill Diana's prescription 3 days ago. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The pharmacist, Mr. Brenner, looked up with practiced sympathy that meant nothing. Alice placed the black credit card on the counter. Her hand was shaking. Her voice was steady. "I am here to pay my account balance and pick up my daughter's medication." Mr. Brenner looked at the card, then at Alice, then back at the card. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite respect, but recognition that money changed everything, even when it was borrowed. "Of course, Miss Donovan. Let me pull that up for you right now." Alice closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. The test had begun. Gabriel Charlton could not focus on a single word his attorneys were saying. The Naperville development contract sat open on his desk, 23 pages of legal language that normally commanded his complete attention. Today, it might as well have been written in ancient Greek. His phone lay face up beside his laptop, banking app open, transaction history refreshing every 90 seconds. 9:30 a.m. No charges. 10:15 a.m. Nothing. 11 o'clock came and went. The account remained untouched. Gabriel leaned back in his leather chair, staring out at the Chicago River below. Boats moved slowly through gray water. Traffic hummed on bridges. The city functioned exactly as it always did, indifferent to the fact that somewhere out there, a woman with nothing held everything he owned in her worn hands. By noon, irritation had replaced curiosity. She should have used it by now. Any rational person would have headed straight to an ATM, maxed out cash advances, disappeared into the kind of life poverty makes people dream about. New identity, new city, new chance. That is what his father would have predicted. That is what every business partner who had ever stolen from him had done. Take the opportunity, maximize the return, vanish before consequences arrive. Gabriel refreshed the app again. Still nothing. He thought about Kenneth Voss, his former CFO, who had embezzled $2.3 million over 18 months using fake vendor accounts. They had golfed together, celebrated holidays together. Gabriel had trusted him with access to accounts, with signing authority, with the keys to the kingdom. Kenneth had smiled every single day while bleeding the company dry. He thought about his second wife, Paulette, who had seemed to love him right up until the divorce papers arrived. Community property laws in Illinois were generous. She walked away with $14 million and a beach house in Montecito. The last he heard, she was engaged to a tech investor in San Francisco. Love had been a transaction. Marriage had been an investment strategy. He thought about his father, dying in a hospital room in Winnetka, gripping Gabriel's hand with surprising strength for a man whose organs were failing. "Trust no one, son, especially not the desperate ones. They will take everything and convince themselves they deserved it all along." 1:00 p.m. arrived. Gabriel stood and paced to the window, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. Maybe she had thrown the card away. Maybe dignity mattered more than survival. Maybe she was better than he gave her credit for, which somehow felt worse than if she had simply stolen from him. At 1:30, his assistant Claudia knocked and entered without waiting for permission. "Mr. Charlton," the Brennan Group called again. "They need an answer on the River North property by end of day Friday." "Tell them I need until Monday," Gabriel said without turning around. "Sir, they have been waiting 3 weeks already." "Then they can wait 4 days more." Claudia hesitated in the doorway, sensing his mood. "Is everything all right?" Gabriel almost laughed. "No, Nothing is all right. I gave a complete stranger unrestricted access to my money, and now I am sitting here refreshing a banking app like a paranoid lunatic waiting for proof that people are exactly as terrible as I have always believed. He did not say any of that. Instead, he waved her away. Just handle Brennan. I will deal with it Monday. 2 o'clock came, then 2:30. Gabriel had stopped pretending to work. He sat at his desk, phone in hand, watching minutes dissolve into the kind of suspense that made his chest tight. She was going to prove his father right. Eventually. They always did. At 3:42 p.m., his phone vibrated. Transaction alert. Gabriel's heart kicked against his ribs. He opened the app with hands that had negotiated billion-dollar deals without shaking, but trembled now over $39.17. Myers Pharmacy, 63rd Street, Chicago. Gabriel stared at the screen. He refreshed it twice, certain he had misread. But the number did not change. $39.17. Not thousands. Not tens of thousands. Not a plane ticket or hotel suite or shopping spree on Michigan Avenue. A pharmacy. In a neighborhood Gabriel had never visited. For an amount that would not cover a single lunch at the restaurants he frequented. He sat back slowly, confusion replacing irritation. This was not escape. This was not indulgence. This was not betrayal. This was something else entirely. Gabriel pulled up the merchant details. Cross-referenced the address. South Shore area, working-class neighborhood, the kind of place where people counted change and skipped meals to make rent. Alice Donovan had unlimited access to wealth she could not comprehend, and she had bought something for $39 at a corner pharmacy. Gabriel leaned forward, elbows on his desk, staring at his phone like it held a message written in code he could not crack. "What the hell are you doing, Alice?" His father's voice whispered in his memory. "Wait. The desperate are patient. They will lull you into trust before they strike. This is just the beginning." But Gabriel felt something shift inside his chest. Something uncomfortable. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. He stood and grabbed his coat. Claudia looked up in surprise as he strode past her desk toward the elevator. "Sir, where are you going? You have a 4 o'clock with the zoning commission." "Cancel it," Gabriel said. "I need to see something." The elevator doors closed. Gabriel descended toward street level, toward his car, toward answers he suddenly needed more than air. $39.17. What could possibly matter that little? Gabriel sat in his Mercedes outside Myers Pharmacy on 63rd Street, engine idling, watching people move in and out of a world he had never inhabited. The building needed paint. The parking lot had cracks, spiderwebbing through asphalt. A handwritten sign in the window advertised flu shots for $29. This was where Alice Donovan had chosen to spend his money first. Not Neiman Marcus. Not the Apple Store. Not a day spa or hair salon or any of the places people with sudden wealth gravitated toward. A pharmacy in South Shore where the most expensive item in the window was probably cough syrup. Gabriel's phone buzzed. Another transaction alert. 4:17 p.m. $62.34. Pullman Fresh Market, Hyde Park. A grocery store. Gabriel pulled up the transaction details, fingers moving quickly across his phone screen. Merchant category code indicated standard groceries. No alcohol, no tobacco, no lottery tickets. Just food. He sat back against leather seats, confusion crystallizing into something harder to name. This was not the behavior of someone seizing opportunity. This was the behavior of someone buying necessities she had been putting off for months. His phone buzzed again 15 minutes later. 4:39 p.m. $47.18. Kids First Outlet. Cicero Avenue near Midway Airport. A children's clothing store. Gabriel felt something cold settle in his stomach. He opened his laptop, connected to his phone's hotspot, and pulled up the full transaction history with timestamps and merchant details that his premium banking service provided. Myers Pharmacy, prescription medication, generic albuterol inhaler, children's multivitamins, acetaminophen, Pullman Fresh Market. The itemized receipt showed milk, bread, peanut butter, fresh vegetables, chicken breasts, rice, oranges. Nothing prepared, nothing convenient. Nothing that did not require cooking. Kids First Outlet. Winter coat, girls size 7. Athletic shoes, girl size 2. 2 packages of underwear. 1 package of socks. Gabriel scrolled through the list twice, searching for something that confirmed his suspicions. A designer purse, a spa treatment, a restaurant charge, anything that indicated self-interest. There was nothing. Every single purchase was practical, restrained, necessary. The kind of shopping list a parent makes when they have been choosing between electricity and groceries for too long. His father's voice echoed in his memory. She is playing you, setting up the con. The desperate are clever. They make you believe in their nobility right before they empty your accounts. But Gabriel could not make the numbers fit that narrative. Alice Donovan had access to unlimited wealth, and she was buying her daughter a winter coat from an outlet store near the airport. She could have gone to Burberry. She could have spent thousands. Instead, she spent $47. Gabriel closed his laptop and stared through the windshield at Myers Pharmacy. An elderly man shuffled out carrying a small white bag, probably medication he could barely afford. A young mother went in holding a toddler's hand, exhaustion written across her face in lines that had nothing to do with age. This was Alice's world, not Lake Shore Drive penthouses and charity galas and business lunches where the wine cost more than weekly groceries. This was survival mathematics. This was counting change. This was choosing between asthma medication and winter coats and hoping your daughter did not notice you were skipping meals. Gabriel had built an empire on understanding human behavior. He had predicted market trends, negotiated with cutthroat investors, identified liars and opportunists from across boardroom tables. He prided himself on reading people, but he had never seen Alice Donovan, not in 6 years. She had been invisible, furniture that cleaned furniture, a uniform that arrived at 8 and left at 6. He had never asked about her life, never wondered where those 2 buses took her, never thought about the person beneath the person who scrubbed his floors. Another alert, 5:12 p.m., $31.16, Walgreens on State Street. Gabriel pulled the details. School supplies, notebooks, pencils, folders, a scientific calculator, the kind of items that appeared on back-to-school lists that parents with money bought without thinking and parents without money lost sleep over. He thought about his own childhood. His father had bought him a car for his 16th birthday, a BMW, midnight blue. Gabriel had complained that it was not the color he wanted. His father had bought him another one 3 months later. Diana Donovan was getting a winter coat from an outlet store, and her mother was probably crying with relief that she could finally afford it. Gabriel sat in his car as afternoon stretched into early evening, watching transactions appear like breadcrumbs leading him toward a truth he had spent 42 years avoiding. Alice was not taking advantage of him. She was taking care of her daughter. Every single purchase was for the child, the medication, the food, the clothes, the school supplies. Nothing for herself, not a single item. Gabriel pulled up the banking app one more time, scrolling through the modest charges, searching for evidence of selfishness. He found none. Just a mother buying things her daughter needed, things she probably lay awake at night worrying about, things that should not require a billionaire's test to obtain. His phone lit up with another alert. 5:53 p.m., $26.42. Buckley Elementary School District Office. Gabriel clicked through to the merchant details. School lunch account payment. He closed his eyes. His throat tightened. Alice Donovan had unlimited access to his money for 24 hours, and she was paying her daughter's school lunch debt. Everything was for Diana. Every single thing. The test had revealed nothing about Alice's greed or desperation or willingness to exploit opportunity. It had revealed only that she was a mother trying to keep her daughter fed, healthy, warm, and educated. Nothing more, nothing less. Gabriel started his car. His hands were shaking. His chest felt hollow. He had given Alice this test to prove his father right, to confirm that poverty made thieves of everyone, to validate decades of suspicion and self-protection. Instead, she was teaching him something his wealth had never let him learn. Some people remain decent even when decency costs them everything. Gabriel sat in his penthouse that evening, surrounded by silence that felt heavier than usual. The city lights stretched across Lake Shore Drive like scattered diamonds, beautiful and cold. On his laptop screen, The complete transaction history glowed with quiet accusation. He had printed it, all of it. 8 purchases across 6 hours. Total spending, $248.61. Alice Donovan had been given access to millions and had spent less than the cost of the suit jacket hanging in his closet. Gabriel spread the receipts across his marble counter, studying them like evidence in a trial where he was both prosecutor and defendant. Myers Pharmacy, $39.17. Albuterol inhaler for pediatric asthma, generic brand. Children's multivitamins, store brand. Acetaminophen, also generic. The pharmacist's notes indicated a previous balance paid in full, 3 months of back charges for prescriptions picked up on credit. Diana could not breathe without that inhaler. Alice had been rationing it, stretching doses, praying her daughter's lungs held out until the next paycheck cleared. Pullman Fresh Market, $62.34. The itemized receipt listed staples. Milk, whole grain bread, natural peanut butter, carrots, broccoli, chicken breasts marked down for quick sale, brown rice, oranges. Gabriel calculated portions. This was a week of groceries, maybe 10 days if stretched carefully. Nothing processed, nothing convenient, everything requiring time and effort to prepare. Alice was cooking from scratch because it was cheaper. She was buying marked-down meat because it was what she could afford. She was choosing nutrition over convenience because Diana deserved better than dollar menu meals. Kids First Outlet, $47.18. 1 winter coat, girls size 7, clearance rack. 1 pair of athletic shoes, girls size 2, previous season's model. 2 6-packs of cotton underwear. 1 6-pack of crew socks. Gabriel thought about his own daughter from his first marriage, Veronica, now 23, and living in Manhattan. She had thrown a tantrum at 16 when he bought her a Mercedes instead of a Range Rover. She had complained that the color was boring. He had never taught her gratitude because he had never required her to understand scarcity. Diana was getting a clearance coat, and her mother was probably crying with relief in an outlet store parking lot near the airport. Walgreens on State Street, $31.16. School supplies, 3 spiral notebooks, college ruled, 1 package of mechanical pencils, 2 pocket folders, 1 scientific calculator, basic model, 1 pink eraser, 1 package of index cards. Gabriel remembered the previous week. He had purchased a fountain pen at a Michigan Avenue boutique, Mont Blanc, limited edition, $4,000. He had used it twice and forgotten about it. Alice was buying a basic calculator so her daughter could do math homework. Buckley Elementary School District, $26.42. Lunch account payment, partial balance. Account notes indicated Diana Donovan, 3rd grade, balance brought current through end of March. Gabriel closed his eyes. His chest ached. Somewhere in Chicago, an 8-year-old girl had been going to school hungry because her mother could not afford $15 a week for cafeteria meals. Diana had probably told her teacher she was not hungry. She had probably smiled and said she ate breakfast late. She had probably watched other children eat while her stomach cramped and twisted. And Alice had cleaned Gabriel's penthouse, scrubbed his floors, organized his life, all while knowing her daughter was 3 weeks behind on lunch payments. Gabriel thought about his business partners. He thought about Troy Whitmore, who he had trusted with $40 million in development capital. Troy had spent it on a vacation home in Aspen and a sports car collection. When confronted, Troy had shrugged and said Gabriel could afford the loss. He thought about his former CFO, Kenneth, who had stolen $2.3 million over 18 months. Kenneth had gambled it away in Atlantic City, losing money faster than he could embezzle it. When caught, Kenneth had blamed his wife's shopping addiction, his son's private school tuition, his own stress levels, everyone else's fault, never his own. He thought about his second wife, Paulette, who had spent $300,000 redecorating their Lincoln Park home 6 months before filing for divorce. She had called it an investment in their future. It had been an investment in her exit strategy. Gabriel had trusted these people with millions. They had all taken more than offered. They had all justified their greed. They had all looked him in the eye and lied. Alice Donovan had been given everything and had taken only what her daughter needed to survive. Not a single purchase was for herself. Not coffee, not lunch, not a coat. Though Chicago winters were brutal and her current one was probably as threadbare as Diana's had been. Gabriel scrolled through his own credit card history from the past week. Dinner at Gibson's Steakhouse, $467. Wine shipment from Napa Valley, $812. Dry cleaning, $234. Barber appointment at a Gold Coast salon, $150, including tip. In 1 week, Gabriel had spent on maintaining his appearance more than Alice had spent keeping her daughter alive. The contrast made him feel physically sick. His phone buzzed. 7:10 p.m. Transaction alert. Gabriel opened it slowly, bracing himself. $50. Women's Transitional Housing Center of Bronzeville. Donation. Gabriel stared at the screen. He read it 3 times, 4 times. The words refused to change. Alice Donovan, a woman living in poverty, raising a child alone, struggling to pay for medication and food and school supplies, had just donated $50 to a shelter. She had given away money she did not have to help people who had even less. Gabriel set his phone down carefully. His hands were shaking. His throat had closed. His eyes burned with something that felt dangerously close to tears. The test was over. The results were in. And Gabriel Charlton finally understood what his father had never taught him. Poverty did not make thieves of everyone. Sometimes it made saints. Gabriel did not sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse office staring at the donation receipt on his screen, watching the numbers blur as exhaustion pulled at his eyes. $50 to the Women's Transitional Housing Center of Bronzeville, a place that helped mothers and children escape homelessness, domestic violence, poverty's endless spiral downward. Alice had been there. Maybe not physically, but close enough to understand. Close enough to remember what desperation tasted like. Close enough to know that $50 could mean clean sheets for a child, or a week of bus fare or dignity when the world kept stealing it away. She had given away money she did not have to people who needed it more than she did. Gabriel's father had been wrong. Catastrophically, completely, cruelly wrong. The memory hit him like a fist to the chest. He was 11 years old, sitting in his father's study in their Winnetka home. Outside, snow fell across manicured lawns where gardeners worked year-round maintaining perfection. Inside, his father, Richard Charlton, sat behind a mahogany desk counting cash from his wallet. A man had knocked on their door that afternoon. Middle-aged, worn coat, apologetic voice. His car had broken down 2 blocks away. He just needed $40 for a tow truck. He would pay it back. He promised. Richard had closed the door in his face. Afterward, he had called Gabriel into his study and delivered a lesson that had shaped 4 decades of Gabriel's life. Son, that man was lying. His car was not broken. He wanted drug money or gambling money or money for whatever weakness controls him. The poor always have a story. They always need just a little bit more. And if you give it to them, they will bleed you dry and never even say thank you. Generosity is weakness. Compassion is stupidity. The only thing that keeps people honest is knowing you are watching. Gabriel had believed him. For 42 years, he had believed him. But Alice Donovan had just proved that everything his father taught him was a lie built on fear and protected by wealth that never had to look poverty in the face. At 7:45 the next morning, Gabriel heard his penthouse door open. Alice always arrived at 8, but today she was early. He walked into the kitchen and found her standing by the marble counter, still wearing her coat. The black credit card sat between them like evidence at a crime scene. Next to it, a small stack of receipts folded neatly, organized by timestamp. Alice looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "I wrote everything down," she said quickly, her voice shaking. "In case you wanted proof. In case you thought I was trying to hide something. I kept every receipt. I can explain every purchase if you need me to." Gabriel could not speak. His throat had closed. Alice pushed the receipts toward him. "Diana needed her medicine. She has asthma, and I had been rationing her inhaler because I could not afford refills. She needed a winter coat because hers was too small and had holes in the lining. She needed shoes because her toes were cramped, and I could not keep pretending she would grow into the ones she had. She needed food that was not rice and canned beans. She needed school supplies her teacher kept emailing me about. She needed her lunch account paid so she could stop lying about already eating. Gabriel picked up the receipts with hands that trembled. He had already seen them. He had already read them. But holding the physical paper made it real in a way digital transactions never could. "I did not buy anything for myself," Alice continued, her words tumbling out like a confession. "I know that was probably part of the test, to see if I would, but I could not. My daughter is watching the kind of person I am, and I need her to see someone who does not take what she does not need, someone who does not become greedy just because opportunity appears, someone who understands that character is what you do when no one is controlling you." Gabriel looked up. Tears were streaming down Alice's face, but her voice was steady. "I knew this was a test, Mr. Charlton. I knew you gave me that card to see if I would take advantage of you, to see if poor people are exactly as terrible as you have been taught to believe. And I decided not to be. Not because I wanted to impress you, not because I wanted to keep my job, but because my daughter is 8 years old, and she is watching me make choices. And I will not teach her that desperation justifies theft, or that poverty makes you less human, or that rich people are right to suspect us of being monsters." The last word hit Gabriel like a bullet. Monsters. That is what his father had taught him. That poverty made people into something less than human, something dangerous, something that needed to be controlled and suspected and kept at arm's length. Alice wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I donated $50 to a women's shelter because 6 months ago, Diana and I almost ended up there. Because I know what it feels like when the world decides you are invisible. Because having nothing does not make you selfish. Sometimes it makes you more generous because you remember what nothing feels like." Gabriel set the receipts down carefully. His vision was blurred. His chest ached. Something inside him that had been frozen for 42 years was cracking apart. "I gave you that card to prove my father right," Gabriel said quietly. His voice broke on the last word. "To prove that people are only decent when money is watching them. That trust is a currency fools waste. That the poor are especially dangerous because desperation makes thieves of everyone." Alice met his eyes. "I know." Silence stretched between them like a bridge neither knew how to cross. "And?" Gabriel asked, though he already knew the answer. "And you were wrong," Alice said. Not angry, not triumphant, just sad. "You were taught something cruel, and you believed it because believing it protected you from ever having to care about people like me." Gabriel felt something break inside his chest. She was right. She was completely, devastatingly right. The test had never been about Alice. It had been about him. About whether he could look at someone struggling and see a human being instead of a threat. About whether wealth had completely destroyed his ability to recognize dignity when it wore second-hand coats and rode 2 buses to clean his floors. He had failed, spectacularly. Gabriel stood abruptly. His chair scraped against marble. Alice stepped back, startled. "Come with me," he said. Alice's eyes widened. "Sir, I do not understand." "Bring Diana here after school today," Gabriel said. His voice was firm now, decided. "I am not asking permission. I am offering help, real help. No tests, no conditions. No more watching to see if you deserve basic human dignity. Mr. Charlton, I cannot accept charity." "It is not charity," Gabriel said. "It is an apology. For 6 years of not seeing you. For 42 years of believing lies about people I never bothered to know. For building an empire on my father's poison and calling it wisdom." Alice opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Please," Gabriel said, and the word felt foreign. He could not remember the last time he had asked for anything instead of demanding it. "Let me fix this." Alice stood frozen in Gabriel's kitchen, the credit card still on the counter between them like a border neither had permission to cross. Her hands trembled. Her mind raced through possibilities, all of them dangerous. This is a trap, she thought. Rich men do not apologize. They do not admit they were wrong. They definitely do not offer help without expecting something in return. But Gabriel's eyes held something she had never seen before. Not pity, not condescension. Something raw, something that looked like shame. "I do not understand what you want from me," Alice said carefully. Gabriel exhaled slowly. "I want to take you and Diana grocery shopping." The request was so unexpected that Alice actually laughed. A short, startled sound. "You want a what?" I want to see it, Gabriel said. I want to watch you make choices when you know I am standing right there. I want to understand how you think, how you decide, how you live. Alice felt heat rise in her chest. You want to study me like some kind of experiment? Watch the poor person shop so you can feel better about yourself? No, Gabriel said firmly. I want to witness dignity I have spent my entire life being taught does not exist. Alice stared at him. This man had more money than she could comprehend. He lived in a penthouse that probably cost more per month than she would earn in 5 years. He wore watches that could pay her rent for a decade. And he wanted to follow her through a grocery store in South Shore like some kind of anthropologist studying foreign culture. It felt insulting. It felt invasive. It felt like every assumption she had feared he was making about her. But it also felt like something else. Like a door opening. Like a chance. 4 o'clock that afternoon, Alice brought Diana to the penthouse. Her daughter's eyes went wide at the marble floors, the enormous windows, the view of Lake Michigan stretching endlessly toward a horizon that seemed impossibly far from their third-floor walk-up. Is this where you work every day, Mama? Diana whispered. Every day, baby, Alice confirmed. Gabriel appeared from his office wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than Alice's monthly rent, but at least was not a suit. He knelt down to Diana's eye level, something Alice had never seen a rich man do. You must be Diana, Gabriel said gently. Your mom has told me a lot about you. Diana glanced at Alice uncertainly. Mama talks about you too. She says you are very busy and very important. Gabriel smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. I used to think being busy made me important. Your mom just taught me I was wrong. 20 minutes later, they stood in the produce section of Pullman Fresh Market on 63rd Street. Gabriel looked completely out of place, expensive jeans and designer sweater surrounded by people in work uniforms and worn coats, shopping carts filled with careful calculations instead of careless abundance. Alice moved through the aisles with Diana holding her hand, selecting items with practiced efficiency. Carrots instead of pre-cut vegetables because they were half the price. Whole chicken instead of boneless breasts because she could stretch it into 3 meals. Store-brand cereal instead of name-brand because Diana could not taste the difference. Gabriel followed silently, watching. Not judging, just watching. At the dairy section, Diana tugged Alice's sleeve. Mama, can we get the strawberry yogurt? The kind with the fruit on the bottom? Alice checked the price. $4 for a 6-pack. The store brand was $2.49. Not today, baby, Alice said gently. But we can get the regular kind and I will cut up fresh strawberries at home. That is even better. Diana nodded without complaint. Okay, Mama. Gabriel watched this exchange with something breaking across his face. This was not deprivation. This was not suffering. This was just math. The kind of math people with money never had to calculate. They reached the checkout lane. Alice's cart held a week of groceries, maybe 10 days if she was careful. Milk, bread, chicken, rice, vegetables, fruit. Nothing processed. Nothing convenient. Nothing that did not require time and effort to transform into meals. The total came to $53.18. Alice pulled out Gabriel's credit card. Her hand shook slightly as she swiped it. The transaction approved. She waited for judgment, for comment, for some indication that Gabriel was tallying this against her character. Instead, he just stood there looking at the receipt the cashier handed Alice like it was a document of profound importance. Outside in the parking lot, Gabriel stopped walking. Alice, that is not enough food. Alice turned, defensive. It is plenty. I know how to make things stretch. We will not go hungry. Diana should not have to eat stretched meals, Gabriel said. She should have strawberry yogurt if she wants strawberry yogurt. She should have fresh fruit and vegetables without you calculating cost per ounce. She should have childhood without poverty, teaching her to expect less. Alice felt tears burning. You do not understand. You are right, Gabriel said. I do not, but I want to. I want to fix this. You cannot fix poverty with a credit card, Alice said, her voice breaking. You cannot just throw money at people and expect their lives to magically improve. I need stability. I need a job that pays enough to cover rent and medicine and food. I need childcare so I can work more than part-time hours. I need Diana to go to schools that are not falling apart. I need a future that is not just surviving until the next crisis. Gabriel met her eyes. Then let me help you build that? Alice shook her head. Why? Why do you care? Yesterday I was furniture. Today I am some kind of project? Yesterday I was blind, Gabriel said quietly. Today I can see. And what I see is a woman who deserves better than what this world has given her. A child who deserves more than poverty as her inheritance. And a man who has spent 42 years believing lies that let him sleep at night. Alice felt something shift inside her chest. This was not charity. This was not pity. This was guilt, transforming into something that looked dangerously close to genuine caring. What are you offering? She asked carefully. A real job, training, an apartment near good schools, childcare, health insurance. A chance for Diana to be a child instead of a casualty of circumstances she did not create. And what do you get? Alice asked. Because rich people always get something. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. I get to stop being my father's son. I get to build something that matters more than real estate empires. I get to prove that wealth is supposed to create opportunity, not hoard it. Diana tugged Alice's hand. Mama, is Mr. Charlton going to help us? Alice looked down at her daughter, then back at Gabriel. She thought about the test, the receipts, the donation, the way he had watched her shop without judgment, the way he had knelt to Diana's level, the way his voice had broken when he said she deserved better. She thought about trust, about risk, about the fact that staying safe had never actually kept them safe. Yes, baby, Alice said quietly. I think he is. Gabriel exhaled like he had been holding his breath for hours. Alice extended her hand. No more tests, no more watching, no more proving I deserve basic dignity. If we do this, we do it as equals. Gabriel took her hand. His grip was firm. Deal. 6 weeks later, Alice stood in the doorway of a 2-bedroom apartment in Oak Park, watching morning light stream through windows that overlooked a street lined with trees instead of broken pavement. The apartment was modest by Gabriel's standards, probably tiny compared to his penthouse, but to Alice it felt like a palace. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen with appliances that worked, a bathroom with water pressure, heat that arrived when you turned the thermostat. A lease in her name with rent she could actually afford because Gabriel had connected her to a property manager who worked with single parents transitioning out of poverty. No charity, no handouts, just opportunity structured like dignity. Diana ran past her into the living room, spinning in circles with her arms outstretched. Mama, I have my own room, my own actual room with a door that closes and a window with curtains. Alice felt tears threatening. Yes, baby, your own room. Diana stopped spinning. Can I put my planet book on the shelf? The one Mr. Charlton bought me? Of course you can, Alice said, smiling. That shelf is yours. Everything here is ours. The word felt foreign. Ours. Not borrowed. Not temporary. Not contingent on Gabriel's mood or charity or continued approval. Theirs. Gabriel had been true to his word. Within 2 weeks of their grocery store conversation, he had connected Alice to Westbrook Hospitality Group, a hotel management company in Naperville that ran a training program for career changers. The program paid minimum wage during training but provided childcare, health insurance, and a pathway to assistant manager positions within 18 months. Alice started the program 3 weeks ago. She learned scheduling software, guest services protocols, conflict resolution strategies, inventory management. The work was hard but not backbreaking. It required her brain instead of just her body. It treated her like someone capable of growth, instead of someone whose ceiling was other people's floors. Every morning, she dropped Diana at Longfellow Elementary, a school 3 blocks from their apartment where teachers knew her daughter's name and asthma action plan within the first week. Diana had friends now, real friends who came over for playdates. She had joined the art club. Her teacher, Miss Kowalski, sent home progress reports that used words like thriving and engaged and joyful. Diana had stopped apologizing for taking up space. She laughed louder. She asked for things without fear. She talked about the future like it was something she was allowed to imagine. Alice watched her daughter transform and felt something she had not experienced in years. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate kind that whispers maybe tomorrow will be different. The solid kind built on stability that did not evaporate when the rent came due. Gabriel visited twice a week, usually after Alice finished her training shifts. He never stayed long, never pushed boundaries, never acted like he owned their gratitude. He just checked in, asked how Diana was doing in school, asked if Alice needed anything, listened when she talked about her training program. Last Tuesday, he had arrived with a bag of groceries. Not extravagant, just staples. Milk, bread, fresh vegetables, chicken. The kind of shopping Alice had done with his credit card that first day. "You do not have to do this," Alice had said. "I am managing now. I can afford groceries." Gabriel had smiled. "I know. But I was at the store anyway, and I thought about Diana's strawberry yogurt, the kind with fruit on the bottom. So, I grabbed some." Alice had found the yogurt at the bottom of the bag. 6 packs, 3 different flavors. She had cried in her kitchen after he left. This afternoon, Gabriel called and asked if he could take Alice and Diana to dinner. Nothing fancy, just a neighborhood place in Oak Park where families ate and noise was expected and children were welcome. They sat in a booth near the window. Diana ordered chicken fingers and colored on the kids' menu with crayons the waitress brought. Alice ordered a salad and water. Gabriel ordered a burger and looked more relaxed than Alice had ever seen him. "I have something I want to talk to you about," Gabriel said carefully. Alice tensed. Here it comes. The conditions. The expectations. The bill for everything he had done. But Gabriel just pulled out his phone and showed her an email. It was addressed to someone named Claudia with a subject line that read, "Foundation Proposal Draft." Alice scanned the message. Words jumped out. Domestic workforce support, living wages, child care assistance, housing stability programs, educational pathways, advisory board positions. "I do not understand," Alice said. Gabriel leaned forward. "I am starting a foundation, the Charlton Workforce Trust. It will support housekeepers, nannies, home health aides, elder care workers, people who make other people's lives possible but get treated like they are invisible, living wage grants, child care subsidies, training programs, housing assistance, everything you needed and could not access." Alice stared at him. "Why?" "Because you were right," Gabriel said. "I cannot fix poverty with a credit card, but I can build systems that give people what they actually need instead of what makes donors feel good. And I want you on the advisory board." Alice nearly dropped her water glass. "You want me to what?" "You know what people need because you lived it," Gabriel said. "You know which programs actually help and which ones are just performative nonsense. You know the difference between charity that humiliates and support that empowers. I need that knowledge. The people we help need that voice." "I am not qualified," Alice stammered. "I have not even finished my training program." "You are the most qualified person I know," Gabriel said firmly. "You raised a daughter alone while living in poverty and somehow taught her kindness instead of bitterness. You were given unlimited access to wealth and spent $248 on necessities. You donated money you did not have because you remembered what desperation felt like. That is not lack of qualification. That is exactly the wisdom this work requires." Diana looked up from her coloring. "Mama, does this mean you are going to help other mamas like you?" Alice felt tears spill over. "Yes, baby. I think it does." Gabriel smiled. "I am announcing the foundation next month in Washington. I would like you there. If you are comfortable. No pressure." Alice wiped her eyes. She thought about the credit card test, the receipts, the grocery store, the way Gabriel had looked at her daughter like she mattered, the way he had listened instead of assumed, the way he had admitted he was wrong. "I will be there," Alice said. Gabriel exhaled. "Thank you." Across the table, Diana went back to coloring, humming softly, safe and fed and warm and hopeful. Alice watched her daughter and felt something settle in her chest. Life had finally stopped moving, and for the first time in years, that stillness felt like peace instead of terror. The National Press Club in Washington, D.C. held 300 people, and every seat was filled. Journalists lined the back wall with cameras and notepads. Philanthropic organizations sent representatives. Labor advocacy groups arrived early. Someone from the Department of Labor sat in the third row taking notes. Gabriel Charlton stood backstage, adjusting his tie for the 4th time. His hands were shaking. In 42 years of business, he had negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. He had faced hostile investors, aggressive competitors, ruthless lawyers. None of it had made his hands shake. But this was different. This mattered. Alice appeared beside him, wearing a navy dress Gabriel had not bought for her. She had purchased it herself with her first full paycheck from Westbrook Hospitality Group. The distinction mattered to her. Gabriel understood why. "You are going to be great," Alice said quietly. Gabriel looked at her. 6 months ago, she had been invisible furniture in his penthouse. Today, she sat on the advisory board of a foundation that would distribute $15 million in its first year to domestic workers across the country. Her voice would shape policy. Her experience would guide strategy. Her dignity would set the standard. "I am terrified," Gabriel admitted. Alice smiled. "Good. That means you care." In the front row, Diana sat between Alice's sister Renee and Miss Kowalski, Diana's third-grade teacher, who had taken a personal day to attend. Diana wore her favorite purple dress and held a small handmade sign that read, "My Mama Helps People." Gabriel had seen it backstage and nearly cried. The moderator, a woman named Beverly Winters from the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance, stepped to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. It is my honor to introduce Gabriel Charlton, founder and CEO of Charlton Properties and creator of the Charlton Domestic Workforce Trust. Mr. Charlton's foundation represents a significant shift in how we approach economic dignity for one of America's most undervalued labor forces. Please welcome Gabriel Charlton." Applause filled the room. Gabriel walked to the podium. The lights were bright. The crowd was watching. Cameras were recording. Everything he said today would be public record. "Good. Thank you for being here," Gabriel began. His voice was steady despite the chaos in his chest. "I am not going to stand up here and tell you I am a good person. I am not going to pretend I have always cared about the people who make my life possible. The truth is, until 6 months ago, I did not see them at all." The room went quiet. This was not a typical philanthropic announcement. "My father taught me that trust is a currency fools waste on people who will never deserve it. He taught me that the poor are especially dangerous because desperation makes thieves of everyone. He taught me that generosity without control is just stupidity wearing an expensive suit. I believed him for 42 years. I built an empire on those beliefs, and I was completely, catastrophically wrong." Gabriel paused. He found Alice in the front row. She nodded. 6 months ago, I gave my housemaid my personal credit card for 24 hours. No limits, no conditions, no surveillance. I told myself it was generosity, but it was not. It was a test. I wanted to prove my father right. I wanted to confirm that people only behave when money is watching them. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Journalists leaned forward. "Her name is Alice Donovan," Gabriel continued, gesturing toward the front row. "She is here today as a founding member of our advisory board. 6 months ago, she was living in poverty, raising her daughter Diana alone, struggling to afford asthma medication and school lunch payments. When I gave her that card, I expected excess. I expected betrayal. I expected her to disappear or spend recklessly or prove every terrible assumption I had been taught about people who have nothing." Gabriel's voice broke slightly. "Instead, she spent $248 on her daughter's medication, on groceries, on a clearance winter coat, on school supplies, on paying a lunch debt so her child could eat at school. And then, with money she did not have, she donated $50 to a women's shelter because she remembered what desperation felt like." The room was silent now. Diana was watching with wide eyes. "Alice Donovan taught me something my wealth never could," Gabriel said. "She taught me that poverty does not make people into thieves. Sometimes it makes them into the most generous people you will ever meet because they understand what it means to have nothing. She taught me that dignity exists independent of bank accounts. She taught me that the test I thought I was running on her was actually revealing everything broken inside myself." Gabriel stepped away from the podium slightly, abandoning his prepared notes. "My father was wrong. Generosity is not weakness. Compassion is not stupidity. Trust is not a currency that gets wasted. It is the only thing that makes us human. and I have spent 42 years being less than human because I was too afraid to look poverty in the face and simply help. He returned to the microphone. The Charlton Domestic Workforce Trust will distribute $15 million this year to housekeepers, nannies, home health aides, elder care workers, and other domestic employees across the United States. We will provide living wage supplements, child care assistance, housing stability grants, educational scholarships, and healthcare access. But more importantly, we will listen. We will center the voices of workers like Alice, who know what people actually need instead of what donors think sounds good in press releases. Applause began, but Gabriel raised his hand. I am not finished. The room quieted again. This foundation exists because Alice Donovan was brave enough to accept help from someone who did not deserve her trust. Because she was strong enough to maintain her dignity when the world kept trying to steal it. Because she was wise enough to teach her daughter that character is what you do when no one is controlling you. I am standing here today not because I am generous. I am standing here because I was shown mercy by someone who had every reason to walk away from me. Gabriel looked directly at Alice. She was crying. So was Diana. The richest person in this room has never been me, Gabriel said. It was always her. And if this foundation accomplishes anything, I hope it is this. I hope it proves that wealth without compassion is just expensive emptiness. I hope it shows that the people we have been taught to overlook are often the people who understand humanity better than those of us who have never had to fight for it. And I hope it reminds everyone who benefits from other people's labor that seeing people, truly seeing them, is not optional. It is the bare minimum of being human. The room erupted. Applause echoed off walls. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions. But Gabriel only saw Alice, standing now, holding Diana, both of them crying and smiling and whole. He had built glass towers and owned properties in 4 cities and accumulated wealth most people could not fathom. None of it had ever mattered until the day a woman with nothing taught him what it meant to be rich.